Hello figments of my imagination. New year, new Ashes stream, and while we still have no Alpha 2 release, we do have a fresh look at what tanking will look like, along with a few UI updates. The main feature of the stream was another hour-long video showcasing some tank gameplay. Steven started off by going over a few abilities. I want to note, the tooltip showed no mana cost for any of these abilities, but the gameplay showed that they do indeed cost mana. As for the abilities themselves, the first, Shield Assault, is a short-range dash that damages and applies Shaken. If the target is already shaken, it stuns. Next up is Inciting Strikes, a frontal cone attack with added threat useful for AoE pulling. And rounding up the damaging abilities, we have Tremoring Bellow, another frontal cone that applies stagger with a separate close-range stomp that deals damage and trips snared enemies. Moving on to the mitigation abilities, we have Grit, a self-buff that reduces incoming damage by 15%, but reduces your move speed by 30% and your outgoing damage by 20%. It also uses Courage stacks to further reduce damage by 15%, creating an incentive to toggle the ability as needed. Next up is Aegis, a protective shield that redirects 50% of damage done to allies to the tank instead. It also dispels all negative effects on the caster. Finally, we have a utility ability in Grapple, a targeted pull that snares for 3 seconds, which combos perfectly with Tremoring Bellow. The combat itself looked beautiful. It's really great seeing all the individual elements from last year's streams coming together into a playable world. The UI is still being worked on, but it looks pretty good even now. Looting follows the standard need-greed rules by default, and any change to the looting rules requires a party vote, a move that will certainly help prevent ninja looting. After the demo came the usual art, on screen now, followed by a pretty short Q&A. Staying with the tank theme, Steven clarified a few points not showcased. First off, just about any class can tank, but for raids and other in-game content, obviously a full tank spec tank will be required. As for PvP, since the game itself is classified as PvX rather than PvE with PvP stapled on, the goal is to make tanks still functional in PvP. One example given was taunt abilities having different effects in PvP that would actually make them useful instead of just being a dead ability. As for non-tank info, probably the juiciest tidbit came while talking about decorating player housing. Steven mentioned that many different factors would affect what kind of furniture and how much furniture could be placed, such as the size and cost of the house. Not exactly groundbreaking info, but he did offhandedly mention that furniture wasn't purely cosmetic. Now, this could mean something like the New World trophy system, where some furniture does provide stats out in the real world, but the way he said it seemed to imply that every single piece of furniture might have some sort of effect on your character. And while it's interesting from a gameplay perspective, I do worry if that kind of system might stifle creativity in player housing. But I guess like most things, we'll just have to wait until Alpha 2 to find out. And that's it. Looking at the game schedule for 2023, I really need this alpha to drop so I can save some cash. Links to both videos are in the description, along with my Ashes referral link if you still haven't pre-ordered. Smash those comments or whatever, and I'll see you all eventually.